What up, everybody? Chef Brian Sow here, the internet's most passionate sandwich maker, and today on Pro Chefs React, I'm checking out Joshua Weissman's $2 sandwich video from his But Cheaper series. If this is your first time tuning in, I am a professional chef with 17 years of experience. I've defeated Bobby Flay on the Food Network show, beat Bobby Flay, as well as run the kitchen of the world-renowned restaurant Beauty in Essex, located right here in New York City. Quick shout out to my patrons on the sous chef level. Thank you so much for your support. If you've been enjoying this series, be sure to check out my Patreon, link in the description below. The views and opinions expressed in this video are of my own only. This is meant to be for fun and educational purposes. So with that said, let's get into the video.
Wait a minute, are we not gonna talk about how sandwiches are kind of like big boy overpriced? The average sandwich costs this right here. But I think we could take that price to this.
You can make, this doesn't only apply to sandwiches, this applies to basically all foods. If you make it at home, it will be cheaper than purchasing it.
That is But Cheaper.
I really like Joshua Weissman a lot. Number one, he's a pro, but his execution, his video quality, absolutely outstanding. Something I aspire to do. I really, really enjoy this guy's content so much. That sandwich is looking good.
When I break down a sandwich, I'm looking at all these different elements, right? We all know bread is cheap. Everybody knows that. But let's talk about the meat. So take turkey, for example, right? You'll get sliced turkey and you're paying a per pound price, which is astronomically higher than it should be. You're basically paying for the whole breast. So that's what we need to have as our plan of attack. The bread is cheap. You can make it cheaper by making it yourself, and all the other elements, blah, 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 blah. We'll work our magic. Long story short, let's make this. Shall we?
Alright, so the first thing we're gonna break down is the most expensive part. Why buy expensive lunch meat when you could just, well, make it? First thing you'll need is some sort of a large container.
Okay, so I definitely agree with that. You know, if you can make it yourself, do. But also, you know, this is a video series called But Cheaper. It'll always be cheaper to make it from scratch, but don't forget, if you're doing this in a restaurant, you're paying for labor, and we all know that is continuing to go up, justifiably so. You know, you have to keep that into account. If you're doing this at home and you can afford the time to do it from scratch, I mean, you know, I think there would be nothing more rewarding, but that's something to keep into account.
They can easily hold 1 gallon of water. Pour in, you guessed it,
he's making a brine, which is a
water,
salted or flavored water.
Cup or 216 grams
Salt,
of kosher salt. Half a cup or 115 grams
brown
of
sugar.
brown sugar. Whisk all that until completely dissolved. Then optionally, you can add aromatics like 1 tablespoon or 9 grams of uncrushed black.
So a brine, you know, typically when I think of a brine, it's usually for poultry products, you know, especially chicken breasts, turkey breasts. These items could get dry very easily when you overcook them. When you submerge something in a brine, not only are you imparting flavor, but you're also imparting moisture. And as we all know, one of the greatest sensations of having well-cooked food is typically the product is nice and moist. Not all, depends on what the product is, but particularly for protein.
Peppercorns, 2 crumbled bay leaves, and 3 sprigs of fresh thyme that have also been lightly crushed.
I already know that's going to be delicious. And you could really mess with your brines. You don't want to mess too much with the salt or, you know, the sugar. You don't want to overdo that, but the other aromatics, like, you know, different spices, like I love to, for my Thanksgiving turkey, I love to put in star anise, cinnamon sticks, cloves, and I get this warmed up typically, so it kind of it opens up the pores of the dry spices and it'll release a lot more aromatics. Let that come down to temp, room temp, and then you submerge your product.
So that's your brine. Give it
and that is, a brine is flavor time. Whenever you brine something, it's always going to impart a lot of good flavor.
Mine was a little misshapen and I wanted it to look real nice for the B-roll, so I actually cut it down a little bit, but you don't have to do that at all. Gently submerge your bird into the brine and make sure it stays under the water or papa no quis. Cover it and let it brine in the fridge overnight. Now once your big-breasted bird has rested, pull it out of the brine and pat it completely dry with paper towels. From there, you'll place it on a wire rack set over a baking sheet that has been lined with foil, unless you want burned stuff on the bottom. It's really hard to clean off, whatever. It's up to you. Optionally, you can give it a light coating with vegetable oil and add additional seasoning if you desire, but that's not entirely necessary at all.
Agreed.
A light sprinkle of salt.
Totally agreed. You know, you're just adding more to an already amazingly delicious product if you put some spices on there, but definitely not necessary. If you brine something right, it'll already be really delicious.
Would do just fine. Now take the bird, pop it into the oven set to 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 minutes or until it becomes a nice golden brown color and the interior reaches 163 degrees Fahrenheit. This thing is so big that the temperature will definitively coast to 165. Now just
Great. To kill salmonella in a poultry product, you have to get it to 165 degrees. He specifically said take it to 162 or 63. I watched it a second ago. I can't remember. But he said that what's going to happen is, he said it's going to coast to 165 degrees to kill off salmonella. That's also called carryover cooking. And what carryover cooking is whenever you remove a piece of food from a cooking source, a heat source, even if you remove it from that heat source, it'll actually continue to cook by a few degrees. This happens to a greater degree, no pun intended, the bigger the product. So something like a prime rib, a whole turkey, whole chicken. These are big protein items that are anywhere between 5 to 15 pounds. So if it was like a 15 to 20 pound turkey, I would probably pull it out at like 158 to 160 degrees because that piece of protein is so big, it's holding in so much energy and heat, it's going to continue to cook and hit that, hit a few degrees higher. Whether it's 165 degrees or whatever, it will actually continue to climb up in heat for a few minutes afterwards, even after you remove it from its heat source.
Rest until it reaches room temperature, then wrap it in plastic wrap, nice and tight, and set it in the fridge until completely cold. At least 3 hours, but ideally overnight.
This dude is great. Spot on everything. The whole reason why he's letting the product rest overnight in the fridge is because he needs to slice it, and it'll slice a lot easier if you let the protein product rest. If you cut it hot, it's gonna fall apart, maybe crumble up easily, shred up. Those are not desired features. Think about it. When you see a cold cut's being cut, it's always cut cold, right? That's why they're called cold cuts. But even when you observe something like when you go to a Chinese banquet, for example, oftentimes there'll be a chicken dish, a whole chicken that they cut bone in, and typically that chicken is either poached or roasted whole, and they don't cut it right away. They let it rest. Actually, this actually applies to every protein, but specifically for cold cuts, for something like a turkey breast, extremely important.
I know it's a 2-day process, but look, now you have a massive amount of
See, he said 2-day process, and that's what I mean by if you have the time, yes, this will absolutely, if you have the time, this will absolutely be cheaper, but you're spending your time. That's the trade-off for this. So yes, you're spending a lot less money by making everything from scratch, but do you have 2 days to dedicate to making this turkey breast? Do you have space in your fridge? Do you have roommates? Do you have 3 other roommates? You're all sharing one fridge and barely any space for your orange juice, let alone a gigantic container holding brine and turkey,
Recommend that option, but I wanted to try this meat slicer that I got, and I gotta say, it kind of sucks, but it got the job done, so whatever. But hold on a second, let's look at this gorgeous slice of turkey. Unbelievably moist.
Moist turkey breast.
I want you to notice that there is a slight pink hue to that. That did hit 165 degrees to kill salmonella, but it will still have a very, very light pink hue. That is actually normal, so don't freak out about that. I've served people wonderful, moist poultry product with that very mild pink hue, despite it hitting 165 degrees. I've had some people freak out on me, but that is actually normal.
Beautiful and ready to be scrunched between 2 slices.
Not to be mistaken with eating undercooked chicken, which then you really are at risk for salmonella poisoning. But again, hit 165 degrees right to the dot, will be a slight pink hue.
Bread. Now, next up is our sando sauce. It's real simple. Get a medium-sized bowl and add 1/3 of a cup or 80 grams of mayonnaise, a quarter cup or 48 grams of Dijon or yellow mustard, a quarter cup or 20 grams of finely chopped parsley, and 2 cloves of garlic grated.
Love it.
Season that to taste with fresh ground black pepper and kosher salt.
Beautiful.
Mix all that together until thoroughly combined, and that is your sandwich lube. Yes, it's basically sandwich lube, let's be honest.
I
Okay,
agree.
we're so close to this sandwich. Can't you just smell it?
I'm drooling right
kind
now.
Probably not. We have one last sandwich component. I was thinking about adding sliced tomato, but that's lame. So let's do something a little more
Nice
metal,
touch.
brother.
Really nice touch. If you remember from my Max the Meat Guy video, he put raw sliced tomato that he put a little kosher salt on top of. You know, Josh is, again, he's really knowledgeable, and he knows what steps to take to really accentuate the flavors of food. Right here, he's taking cherry tomatoes and roasting them, definitely with salt and pepper. And that roasting process is going to expel some of the excess moisture, concentrate the tomato flavor, give you some char. Beautiful.
Let's sear these. Now, get a large skillet and heat it with just enough vegetable oil to coat the bottom, about 3 tablespoons or 45 grams.
That looks
Heat
like
over
extra
medium-high
virgin
heat
olive
until
oil to me,
shimmering
but
and hot,
whatever.
hot. Then carefully add in 1 container, about half a pound of grape tomatoes. Now let those sear, blister, and char. They're gonna spit quite a bit as they sear because of all the bursting juice, so please be careful. After about 3 minutes, check them and they should have softened quite a bit.
And you see how he, despite all the oil popping around, he just puts his hand right in there, checks it. He's definitely getting speckled with that hot ass oil, but he's a pro. He's been through it. He knows that, you know, it just stings a little bit, but perfectly safe and fine.
And gotten some good char. If not, leave them in until they
But
do.
you can
Then
see how
immediately remove,
confident
place to the
he is. You know he's a pro. You can see how confident he is handling all these products. And again, those little steps that he's doing to really make this an outstanding product. Rather than using just regular mayo, he's jazzing it up. He's not going crazy, but you know, a little Dijon, a little bit of that parsley. These are all little touches in every component that comes together to make an amazing product. That is really good cookery. Outstanding
and
work.
season to taste with salt and fresh cracked black pepper. Okay, I actually want to note one more thing. Let's talk about sliced onion on a sandwich. First off, thinly sliced onions are superior. And when I say thin, I mean as thin as you can get.
Yes.
Nearly shaved. More importantly,
Yes.
I have a secret for you. After you've sliced your onions, place them in a bowl and top that bowl with a wire rack and run your tap so it
Yep.
fills up with water and overflows into your sink. Then
Beautiful.
just keep running that water and let it rinse for about 30 seconds. And this is going to help wash away a lot of the abrasive qualities of
Yes.
an onion. It keeps the onion mild enough to
He says abrasive qualities. I call that alkalinity. You know, something like onions and garlic have a lot of alkalinity, and that's that pungent flavor that you get when you bite into it raw. But what he's doing right now, spot on. You rinse it off a little bit, it'll remove some of that alkalinity, and it'll really mellow it out, but still give you the crunch of a raw onion and the flavor without the bad stuff, essentially.
a lot of, but just a little bit of spice while maintaining
Yeah,
that nice
39 cents for a bunch of red onion. I mean, he's spot on with all this food cost. Yeah.
sweet onion. Yay, it's sandwich assembly time. Now, we need some sort of bread. This is up to you. Obviously, homemade bread is ultra cheap, but so is a lot of store-bought bread. Choose whatever
Yep.
you want. I'm not going to judge you. Here I'm using a nice, fresh-baked sourdough loaf. You'll need about 8 slices for 4 servings. See? It's a basic mathematical equation. Optionally, you can toast your bread in a toaster or in a pan with butter until beautifully toasty golden brown. Then lay down your bread, and on both halves, spread on a generous amount of your mustard
Yes, generous amount of sauce. I love saucy sandwiches. Good on ya.
mayo. Next up, some lettuce. You can use
Lettuce.
iceberg or butter, followed by your seared
That looks like Boston Bib lettuce, which is like a hydroponically grown lettuce. It's a bit softer, has a different texture to iceberg, not as crispy, but still equally as refreshing.
tomatoes, your thinly sliced red onion, Papa's juicy turkey breast, and optionally 1 to 2 slices of Swiss cheese,
Nice.
unless you get farty with cheese. I don't know. And finally, crown your king.
Ooh.
I mean, look at this magnificent
That
sandwich.
is beautiful.
Grand total price of this per sandwich.
I think turkey and Swiss is a very classic combo. Yeah, it's a classic combo. And, you know, Swiss is a great cheese because it's got a little bit of funkiness, but overall it's a mild cheese, but will still give you creaminess and, you know, a lot of fat into your sandwich product. You know, Swiss cheese, I think you can never go wrong with. And it also doesn't overpower anything else in the sandwich, which is another thing I like. By using a milder cheese, the turkey and the tomatoes and that sauce can really stand out.
Finally, crown your king. I mean, look at this magnificent
So we went back a
sandwich.
little
Grand
bit,
total
just
price of
there we go. So price per sandwich $1.65, but it's $7.63 if you need to buy everything. Absolutely right. So I think when he says buy everything, a big portion of that will be the price of the turkey that you have to buy yourself, but you don't have to buy all these extra ingredients if you buy the turkey already pre-made, pre-sliced, because you don't need to buy sugar, you don't need to buy the salt, which I know these things you will typically have, but enough to make a brine out of, you know, the space in your kitchen. So it's $7.63 is still a lot cheaper than $12 when you go buy a sandwich. But when you go to a sandwich shop, for example, a place like mine, you know, we're putting a lot of money into, I shouldn't say money, but we're putting a lot into our packaging, you know, which is a big part of the delivery and the experience of visiting my sandwich shop, which is yet to be open. But that all factors in, and the labor as well. You know, this is the $7.63 is just a food cost based on supermarket prices versus, you know, a kitchen where you get everything in house, and sure, maybe your food cost now goes down to $1.65, but you have all this labor to pay. How many hours do you have to pay someone to prep each item from A to Z, right?
Per sandwich. That's better than just about any sandwich shop you're gonna go to. Now let's slice this in half and check out the cross section.
So look at that tomato juice right there. He cooked the tomatoes, moved some of the excess water, and now this thing, that tomato juice coming out of there, that's like sauce. Gorgeous.
Oh, wow. Yes. Okay, let's taste test this.
If I had to rate this 1 out of 10, man, I give this guy 11. Clearly knows what he's doing. Like I said, he takes all those little steps to really accentuate the flavors where it counts. He's not overcomplicating the sandwich or the dish. Let's just say dish. You know, I can tell just by this video, he probably employs these same fundamentals in everything that he makes. He knows where to add to the dish to make it that much better. Give it a little edge over your, normal home-cooked meal, so to speak. So really good stuff. He's clearly a pro. In fact, I already know he's a pro. I've been following him loosely. I don't follow him too closely. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. I hope you learned something today. I definitely had a lot of fun. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like. Be sure to leave me a comment. Let me know what you'd like me to react to next. I am Chef Brian Tsao, not your typical chef, and I'll see you really soon.